Time. Gentleman from Minnesota.
I'll recognize the gentlelady from California, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, for 1 minute.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. I thank him, Mr. Ellison, and our ranking member, Congresswoman Waters, for their great leadership on behalf of American consumers, American investors, and American taxpayers. I rise in opposition to the amendment and to the bill. Mr. Speaker, today, House Republicans are pushing a dangerous Wall Street first bill that would drag us right back to the days of the Great Recession. 8 years ago, unchecked recklessness on Wall Street ignited a financial meltdown that devastated families in every state in the Union. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their jobs every month, and the unemployment rate soared to 10%. More than 11 million Americans lost their homes through foreclosure. $13 trillion in wealth, including families' hard-earned retirement savings and college savings, were destroyed. On the night of Thursday, September 18, 2008, the Treasury Secretary came to the Capitol for an emergency meeting with congressional leaders, Democrats and Republicans, from the House and the Senate to inform us of the financial meltdown. When I asked the chairman, and that would be Secretary Paulson, he described the financial meltdown, which was horrific. When I asked the chairman of the Fed, Bernanke, what he thought of the Treasury Secretary, what he thought of what he was telling us, he told us, the chairman Bernanke told us, that if we did not act immediately, we would not have an economy by Monday. We would not have an economy, Mr. Hensarling, by Monday. Tens of millions of middle-class families across America still bear the scars. You saw on the right the rise of the Tea Party, on the left, Occupy Wall Street. The Democratic Congress vowed that Main Street taxpayers must never again pay the price for the recklessness of some on Wall Street. I don't paint everybody there with the same brush, but many on Wall Street, that predatory lenders and profiteers had abused American families for far too long. With Dodd-Frank, Democrats enacted the strongest Wall Street consumer financial protections in history. Critical reforms to protect hardworking Americans and to insist on accountability from Wall Street. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the law created, has returned nearly $12 billion worth of compensation to 29 million wronged Americans, many of them seniors, many of them service members. But with this bill, the Republicans will undo these safeguards, eviscerate the Consumer Bureau, take our country back to the days of massive taxpayer bailouts. We cannot let that happen. Our Republican colleagues have named this dreadful and dangerous legislation, this Wall Street first legislation, the Choice Act. The Choice Act, to prey on investors, to prey on consumers, to prey on taxpayers. That's the choice they want to give the financial institutions. But let's look at the appalling choices it represents. Instead of protecting consumers, Republicans choose to help those who try to cheat consumers. Instead of protecting seniors, Republicans choose to help those who prey on their retirement savings. Instead of protecting men and women in uniform, Republicans choose to help those who take advantage of our service members' families while our heroes are defending our freedom on the battlefield. Instead of advancing an economy that works for everyone, Republicans choose to help the special interest get richer and to stick working people with the bill for a bailout when it goes wrong. They've always been handmaidens of the special interest. We know that. But even for them, when we think we have seen it all, this really takes them to a new low. So they call it the Choice Act, but these are not the choices that the American people want. They are choices of a Republican Party that puts Wall Street first, that are handmaidens of special interest. So while Director Comey testified in the Senate earlier today, on this side of the Capitol, House Republicans are feeding working families to the wolves on Wall Street. And as I said, I don't paint all on Wall Street with the same brush. The pervasive incentives baked into the Republican bill will enable the predatory to punish the honest. Now, here we go. Think of it. We have a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, 29 million Americans benefiting from $12 billion in compensation. Oh, they don't like that. They want to do away with that. The Volcker Rule, which would prevent the financial institutions from taking risk at the taxpayer's expense. The classic Republican privatize the gain, nationalize the risk. If we win, the private sector and these banks benefit. If we lose, the taxpayer pays the tab. Something that had nothing to do with the Dodd-Frank bill, the fiduciary rule, which only simply said that financial advisors should have the interest of the investor they're advising at heart. This bill says, no, we're doing away from the very compromised, I must say, fiduciary rule to protect investors. And so I don't, as I say, I don't paint all of Wall Street with the same brush, but I do paint as much as I need. I have as much as I need. The American people want to know who stands with them. I know you want me not to talk about this because it is the truth about what you are doing to the American people. But as the leader, I have the right to speak on the floor.
Would the gentlelady yield for a question?
Gentlelady controls the time.
You have plenty of time to spread your malicious legislation to hurt the American people. I'm using my time to speak the truth to them about what this bill does to their financial stability. The American people want to know who stands with them and who stands with the special interest, my Republican colleagues. In the name of hardworking American families, I use my time on behalf of America's hardworking families, not on behalf of the special interest, to urge my colleagues.
Gentlelady controls the time.
How much time does the gentlelady have left, Mr. Chairman?
Gentlelady controls the time.
I urge my colleagues to make the choice to reject this dastardly Wall Street First bill and to vote in support of our men and women in uniform, our seniors who have built our country, in support of those hardworking Americans who are saving for their children's education, hoping to achieve the American dream of home ownership, and not want to be preyed upon by the Republicans in Congress. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from New York.
When I yield my remaining time to the distinguished chairman of the committee, Mr. Henserling.
Texas recognized.
May I inquire how much time is remaining, Mr. Chairman?
Has 1 minute remaining. The gentleman from Minnesota has 1.5 minutes remaining.
Why don't you reserve?
And the gentleman from Minnesota has the right to close.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the last time this body listened to the minority leader and enacted Dodd-Frank, permanent Wall Street bailouts were enshrined into law. That's what the gentlelady represents, but somehow we did not hear that in her speech. The last time we listened to the gentlelady from California, what we see is that working Americans have not received a pay increase. Their paychecks are stagnant. Their savings remain decimated. The last time we listened to the gentlelady, the minority leader from California. Since we listened to her, we've seen that free checking has been cut in half. Bank fees have gone up. Mortgages are more difficult to come by and they're more expensive to close. That's the last time we listened to the gentlelady from California, the minority leader. Her counsel must be rejected, as should the Washington elitism that is represented by her philosophy must be rejected as well. It's why Dodd-Frank must be rejected and why the Financial Choice Act must be enacted, and I support the amendment from the gentleman from New York, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Minnesota.
I don't know if it was the last time, but one of the many times that we listened to Nancy Pelosi, we passed the Dodd-Frank Act, which protected consumers to the tune of 29 million of them to return $11.5 to $12 billion back to their families. I think that Nancy Pelosi has a pretty good record of helping out consumers. I think consumers of America would appreciate $11.5 billion returned to their family budgets. The last time we did listen to Nancy Pelosi, we saw a Dodd-Frank which has stabilized markets, which gave us 85 consecutive months of private sector job growth. But the last time we heard from these free market and Randian conservatives, oh boy, these guys ran the economy straight into the ditch with their deregulatory schemes and their hostility to any kind of regulation on big business. We saw unemployment rates well north of 10% in many parts of this country. We saw home value plummet. We saw mass foreclosures, all because of the failed and Randian free market fundamentalist attitudes that we see so often on the other side of the aisle. And I will just note to my freshman friend that the minority leader can talk as long as she wants. And so you might want to check the rules on that one. I'll yield back.
Chairman yields back. The question